Everybody, this is Ray at React Miami. I'm here with Tejas Kumar. Tejas, thanks for sitting and having a chat with me.
For sure.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, who you work for, and what you do?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, I'm Tejas, pronounced like contagious. I speak at conferences and I run a company that helps other companies do DevRel really well. That's kind of what keeps me busy on the most part. I like science, I like fitness, I like all this, but it's DevRel.
Oh, that's really cool. So like a DevRel consultancy almost?
Exactly.
That's awesome. So you're speaking in a couple of hours here at React Miami. Is this your first time at React Miami?
No, so I was privileged enough to come last year and I had such a good time that I had to come back this year.
What's your favorite part of React Miami?
Miami, like wherever you go, there's this vibe of the people and the environment and the weather and the lights, and it's a whole like Grand Theft Auto Vice City kind of story.
Right.
It feels so good, and the community. This conference does a good job of having MCs who are local, one local, one international. I think that's really great, and the speakers. You get some local speakers and stuff, so it brings international to local together, and I think that's really special.
And I think that's kind of that's a bit of a vibe that I feel here in Miami too, right? Like I get a lot of a local and international vibe just with the city. So I think the conference does a good job of piecing that together. Yeah. And the way they do the single track, I think, is really awesome.
And it's called React Miami, but I don't know if you noticed, a lot of the talks don't have anything to do with React.
Right.
And I love that because it's React. Some people might think that's a problem, but I think React is more than just a library. It's an ecosystem that also has CSS parts and performance parts and so on. So it's a holistic React conference, and I love it.
I think one of the things to get across with people when they're hesitant, especially in developer relations like we do, is to not worry so much about the name as part of the conference, right? So like it does say React, but React developers are developers and they enjoy the soft skills. You know, React is a part of JavaScript, so there's a lot of JavaScript involved there too, right? Yeah. And then React Miami, I think, does a really good job of mixing those soft skills and hard skills together into one conference. So do you have any experience when it comes to low code?
I do. I've been a user of things like Airtable, things like Zeta. I don't know if you've heard. I used to work at Zeta. I was the director of developer relations at Zeta.
Oh, yeah? No, I haven't heard of Zeta. I've definitely heard of Airtable, though.
Yeah. Also, like really, really low code, like Webflow, Web Studio.
Right.
Squarespace.
Yeah, that would be considered low code. So what do you think, like putting your developer hat on, what do you think are like some of the advantages and maybe also some of the disadvantages that you see when it comes to low code?
I think the advantages are tremendous, right? Because you can empower people who don't know code. And I think there's something with the brain of people who actually like have an affinity for coding and people who don't. I know people like this who, no matter how many boot camps they do or how much material they consume, it's just not for them by their choice. And so I think low code or no code enables them to still build on the web, to be included in the community. And I think that's a powerful thing.
Right.
About limitations, I think, it can take the knowledge of code away from people who would otherwise have an affinity for code.
Right.
And I think that might be problematic. And also, like for me as a developer, I've been writing code since I was 15 years old.
Right.
I like the control. I like the fine-grained control. And sometimes you just don't get that with low code.
Yeah. I think one of the big problems that happens with low code is that it makes a lot of the decisions for you. Yeah. And it takes some of the decisions away that as a developer, you really want that ability. And it hinders your ability sometimes to solve your unique business problems, right? Because low code is great when it comes to the common pieces of web applications. Yeah. But then when it comes to the business problems, unless the platform is designed for a developer and built with a developer in mind, you really kind of start getting that inhibitive part of the process, right?
And really, I have two thoughts about this, right? One is, I feel like we're all on a spectrum of abstraction, and low code, no code is a very high level, and maybe some people prefer more like, I just want to write the JavaScript myself. Right. And as you navigate this spectrum, you give up control for convenience. Right. There's always the trade-off. How much convenience am I getting and how much control am I giving up?
Right.
And that's true with no code as well.
Yeah, I mean, as a developer, we selectively give that up in some context anyway, right? When we're importing NPM packages, it's because we don't want to write that code. We know someone else has done it.
It's like when we use React, we don't want to do document.createElement.appendChild. We don't want to work with these imperative DOM APIs.
Right, exactly. So like developers, in a sense, always give up some of that coding process. And when it comes to a low-code platform, I think it's just a matter of evaluating how much of that process you're giving up as a developer and how willing you are to do
I think the more specific your use case, the more well-suited low-code or no-code might be for you.
Right.
If you have a very broad use case and you want more control, maybe it makes sense to not go low-code. Right. But if you have a specific, I want to build a marketing website for my therapy consultancy, Awesome. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. So is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Anything you're passionate about or any projects that you're working on?
I am passionate about so many things. But currently, actually, life's good. Business is good. I'm happy. I'm thankful. And I'm just honored to be here with you and talking about low code and things like that. So,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've heard of developer relations consultancies, and I've had a couple of friends who've wanted to get involved in some of those, but I've never actually met somebody who does a developer relations consultancy.
It's the best work I've ever done, man. And this, I'm definitely passionate about it because I get to work with people who are, like, sometimes, we don't have enough hands, and I bring on extra people and a small team sometimes, and usually these people are underestimated and underrepresented to the point where they don't have impressive resumes, but they have tremendous potential.
Right.
And I get to work with them, and all the while they're doing the bulk of the work and getting paid well.
Yeah.
But they get mentorship from me and others.
Yeah.
And they get to build out that resume. So it's the most rewarding work I've ever done in my entire life.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people that I know that when they find out what I do, they're like, oh, that's really. And there are people here that are volunteering for React Miami that say developer relations. It's like the next step that I want to do. Right. So I think there's kind of an education piece that needs to happen with developer relations, because I've done a couple of positions where they're like, we need a DevRel person, and then they clearly don't know what DevRel is, and it was just like they knew the buzzword and they wanted to get that there.
Yeah, and conversely, there's companies who think they need a marketing person, but what they really want is a DevRel person or a sales team, for example.
Right, exactly. I've been very lucky. When I found 8base, I wasn't looking for a new company, but they had such a good understanding of what they needed from developer relations, and it made sense. Like I'm doing the community stuff, I'm doing the talks, I'm working on our community. They're involving me in product, so like they're really getting feedback from the developers. I have a lot of fun, and I love developer relations. That's the best place to be. Anyway, thanks for taking the time to sit and have a chat, man.
Appreciate you.